On what should have been the happiest morning of her life, Simone stood in her wedding gown and buried her dream of marrying for love. Then a stranger appeared in her room, amber eyes burning with urgency, and whispered, "Your groom's not coming. He's been murdered." Simone didn't know that this man was the Alpha King, or that he'd been dreaming of her for months, and as he dragged her into the forest with assassins at their heels, she had no idea the greatest danger wasn't chasing her. It was already inside her. The morning of Simone's wedding dawned with a sky the color of old bruises. She pressed her palm against the frost-kissed window of her chamber, feeling the chill seep into her bones. In 2 hours, she would marry Lord Malik, a man who'd taken her hand in the gardens 3 nights ago and told her she would do nicely as a wife, the way one might approve of a sturdy chair. "Stop it," Simone murmured to her reflection in the window. The girl staring back looked small and pale, her auburn hair still loose around her shoulders, her green eyes shadowed with exhaustion. "Plenty of women marry for duty. You'll manage." But her mother's voice whispered through her memory. "Never settle for a love that feels like a cage, my darling. You deserve someone who sees you as the sky sees the stars, essential, brilliant, irreplaceable." Her mother had loved like that once. Simone still remembered her father's laugh and the way her mother had glowed in his presence before he perished in an accident in the Northern Territories. Within a year, her stepfather appeared. Charming at first, offering protection to a widow with a young daughter. Her mother accepted, but Simone had watched the light drain from her eyes over the following years until the illness finally claimed her 6 months ago. A sudden knock at the door startled her from her thoughts. "Come in," Simone called, expecting her lady's maid. But it was her stepfather, Roland, who entered, his silver hair immaculately styled, his dark eyes assessing her with the same look he gave his ledgers. "Not dressed yet? The ceremony begins in 2 hours." "I'm aware." Simone kept her voice neutral. Roland moved to the wardrobe where her wedding gown hung, his fingers brushing the ivory silk. "Your mother would be proud. This match elevates our family considerably. Lord Malik's connections to the Southern Territories." "I know," Simone interrupted softly. She'd heard this speech a dozen times, how Malik's wealth would secure their holdings, how his political influence would open doors, how fortunate she was to have such an advantageous match. Never once had Roland asked if she wanted this. "Good." Roland's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'll send your maid to help you dress. Don't be late. Lord Malik doesn't appreciate tardiness." He left without another word, and Simone released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Anxiety twisted through her stomach, sharp and insistent. Something felt wrong about today, ever since she'd woken before dawn with her heart racing from a dream she couldn't quite remember. Dreams of golden eyes and danger and a voice saying her name like a prayer. She shook her head. Wedding nerves, nothing more. The maid arrived minutes later, a young woman Simone didn't recognize, which was odd. "Marjorie took ill," the maid explained, as if reading her thoughts. "I'm to assist you instead." There was something strange about the woman's eyes, but Simone was too tired to question it. She allowed herself to be guided to the dressing area as the maid began the intricate process of preparing her. The wedding gown was a masterpiece of silk and lace, designed to make her look like a princess from a storybook, but it felt like she was playing a part in someone else's story. The maid worked in silence, her fingers deft as she laced the back of the gown. The corset tightened around Simone's ribs, making it hard to breathe, and she wondered if this was what her whole life would feel like now. Beautiful confinement, elegant suffocation. "There," the maid murmured, tying off the final lace. Simone turned to thank her, but the woman was already gone. The door stood slightly ajar, and through it, Simone could hear the distant sounds of the manor preparing for the ceremony. Music drifting up from below, voices calling orders. She moved to close the door, her hand on the handle, when she felt it. A presence behind her. Not the maid. This was different. Larger. The air in the room changed, growing thick with something she couldn't make out yet. Her pulse kicked up, instinct urging her to turn around, but her body had gone very still. "Don't scream," a man's voice said quietly. "I'm not here to hurt you." Simone finally spun around, her heart launching into her throat. A man stood in the center of her chamber. He was tall, powerfully built, with broad shoulders that filled out his dark, traveling leathers. His hair was the color of late summer wheat, falling just past his collar in waves that looked like he'd run his fingers through them too many times. But it was his eyes that stopped her breath. Amber. Pure, burning amber, like honey held up to firelight. Those eyes stroked over her with an intensity that made her skin prickle, taking in her wedding gown, her loose hair, her face. "Who are you?" Simone demanded, though her voice came out shakier than she'd intended. "How did you get in here?" "My name is Sawyer." He took a step closer, and she noticed he moved with a fighter's grace. "And I'm here because you're in danger." "Danger?" Simone's hand went to the door handle behind her. "I'm calling the guards." "Your groom isn't coming." Sawyer's voice was low, urgent. "Malik is dead. Murdered 2 days ago in the northern woods." Simone's grip on the door handle tightened, the only thing keeping her upright as her mind tried to process his words. That's not possible. My stepfather spoke with him yesterday." "Your stepfather lied." Sawyer's amber eyes held hers, and she saw truth there, stark and terrible. "Roland and Malik have been planning this for months. You were supposed to die on your wedding night, Simone, so your stepfather could inherit everything, your mother's estate, her holdings, all of it." Simone's breath came in short, sharp gasps. Her mind raced, trying to find the flaw in his story, the reason this couldn't be true. Yet the pieces were clicking into place with horrible clarity. Her mother's sudden illness, the rushed engagement to Malik, her stepfather's insistence that she sign documents transferring certain properties for safekeeping. "My mother," she whispered. "The physicians said they lied. She was poisoned." Sawyer's voice gentled slightly, but his eyes remained fierce. "I'm sorry, Simone." The words hit her like physical blows. Her knees weakened, and she might have fallen if not for her death grip on the door. Grief stampeded through her heart, followed by rage so pure it burned. "Why should I believe you?" But even as she asked, she knew. Deep down, in a place she'd been ignoring for years, she'd always known something was wrong. "I've been investigating a conspiracy against my throne for months," Sawyer said. "Your stepfather and Malik were part of it, and when I discovered what they planned to do to you..." He broke off, jaw clenching. "I couldn't let it happen." "Your throne?" Simone's eyes widened. "Who?" "Alpha King Sawyer." He said it simply. "Of the Northern Territories. And before you ask how I found you." He hesitated, and for the first time, uncertainty crossed his features. "I've been dreaming of you." Simone's breath caught. "What?" Sawyer ran a hand through his hair, and she realized he was nervous. "In my culture, dreams don't lie. They're rare, but when they come, they always mean something vital. I saw you in danger, saw your face so clearly I could have painted it from memory. And every morning I woke up feeling..." His jaw tightened, "like I was running out of time." "I don't understand," she whispered. "Neither do I. Not fully." Sawyer took another step closer, and she could smell him now, pine and leather and something wild that made her pulse spike. "But I know this. In 5 minutes, your stepfather will come to collect you for the ceremony. He'll walk you down to that great hall, where instead of a groom, armed men will be waiting. They'll stage an attack, make it look like raiders, and you'll die, Simone, unless you come with me right now." Horror washed over her in cold waves. "You're asking me to run away with you, to abandon everything on your word alone." "Yes." Sawyer's expression was fierce, urgent. "I know how it sounds, but Simone—" She looked at him then, really looked, at the strong lines of his face, the set of his jaw, at those amber eyes burning with intensity, golden eyes. Her breath caught. The dreams. Every morning for weeks, she'd woken with her heart racing, chasing the ghost of a dream she couldn't quite hold on to. But she remembered the eyes, the same impossible shade of amber now fixed on her face. "I've seen you before," she whispered. Something blazed in Sawyer's expression. Relief, recognition. "Then you know I'm telling the truth." Did she? Simone's hands trembled, but now there were footsteps in the corridor, multiple sets moving with purpose. Sawyer's head snapped toward the door. "We're out of time, Simone. You have to choose now." Her gaze flew to her mother's jewelry box on the vanity. "Grab what you can carry," Sawyer said quietly. 2 minutes, maybe less. Simone's hands moved before her mind could catch up. She grabbed the jewelry box, her mother's journal from the bedside table, and the small portrait of her parents that sat by her mirror. Her fingers trembled as she gathered them, reality crashing over her in waves. The footsteps grew louder, closer, right outside, her door now. Sawyer's eyes flashed with something inhuman. Too late for the subtle approach. His gaze locked on hers, fierce and urgent. "Simone, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She barely had time to nod before the door burst open. Roland stood in the doorway, flanked by 3 armed guards. Something cold glittered in his dark eyes as he took in the scene, Simone clutching her mother's belongings, Sawyer standing between her and the door like a shield. "I see we have an uninvited guest," Roland said calmly. "Seize him." The guards moved forward, hands on their sword hilts. Sawyer didn't move, but Simone felt the change in him, the air around him crackling with barely leashed violence. "Last chance, Gaines," Sawyer said quietly. "Call them off and confess your crimes. I'll make your trial quick." Roland laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. "Bold words for a man outnumbered in my house. Kill him. And Simone?" His gaze shifted to her, and she saw bloodlust there. "It's a shame you didn't make this easier." Everything happened at once. The guards lunged. Sawyer moved in a blur of speed, catching the first man's sword arm and twisting until bone cracked. The guard screamed. The second guard swung his blade in a vicious arc, but Sawyer ducked under it, his elbow slamming into the man's temple with devastating precision. And then he began to change. Simone watched in horrified fascination as Sawyer's body rippled, bones restructuring beneath skin, muscles expanding. Golden fur erupted across his flesh. In the space of 3 heartbeats, the man was gone, replaced by a massive wolf the size of a warhorse. The wolf's eyes, still that burning amber, fixed on the remaining guard, who stumbled backward with a strangled cry. Shifter. The word blazed through Simone's mind. She'd heard stories, but never seen one. Never imagined the raw power, the primal beauty of the transformation. The wolf, Sawyer, growled, a sound that vibrated through the floorboards and into Simone's bones. Roland had gone pale, backing toward the doorway. "Simone." Sawyer's voice echoed in her mind, rich and commanding. "Get on my back, now." She didn't question how she could hear him. She approached the massive wolf, her mother's belongings clutched to her chest. This close, he was enormous, too tall for her to mount. Panic fluttered in her chest. I'm not tall enough." Sawyer's wolf lowered himself to the ground in one fluid motion, front legs folded, making himself small enough for her to climb on. Simone swung a leg over his back, settling between his shoulder blades. His fur was warm beneath her, and the moment her thighs gripped his sides, power surged through her, a connection that made her gasp. She could feel his heartbeat, strong and steady, could sense his determination to protect her, fierce and unwavering. "Hold tight," Sawyer's voice commanded in her mind. Then he was moving. Sawyer's wolf launched toward the window with explosive force. Simone had just enough time to register Roland's shout of fury, the remaining guards scrambling to give chase. Then they were airborne, crashing through the glass in a shower of glittering shards. Simone buried her face in Sawyer's fur, her scream caught in her throat as they plummeted. At the last moment, she felt his body shift beneath her, twisting so his shoulder would hit first, curling slightly to create a pocket that kept her from slamming into the ground. The impact jarred through him with force, but not a scratch touched her. He didn't even pause, just surged forward in a powerful sprint. Shouts erupted behind them. More guards poured from the manor's doors, weapons drawn. Arrows hissed through the air. One whistled past her ear close enough to stir her hair. Another found its mark, slicing through Sawyer's shoulder with a wet thud. His stride faltered for half a heartbeat. Simone felt warm blood seep into his fur beneath her hands. "You're hurt," she gasped aloud. "Stay low. I've got you." His mental voice was steady, unshaken. More arrows flew. Sawyer zigzagged through the courtyard, using his massive body to shield her from the volleys. She felt another arrow graze his flank, but he never slowed. "Sawyer, you need to—" "I've got you," he repeated, fiercer this time. "Nothing touches you, I promise." They tore through the formal gardens, leaped the ornamental hedges, and crashed through the gates at the edge of the property. Guards tried to block their path, but Sawyer barreled through them, sending men scattering like leaves before a storm. Then they were in the forest, trees whipping past in a blur of green and gold. Simone's heart hammered against her ribs, adrenaline and terror singing through her veins. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew fainter, swallowed by the dense woods. Sawyer ran at full speed, his breathing labored now, blood matting his golden fur. But he didn't slow until the sounds of pursuit had faded entirely. Only then did he drop to a lope, then finally a walk. Simone's entire body shook with aftershock. She was alive. She'd escaped. And she was riding on the back of a wolfman who was actually a king who'd been dreaming about her. Her life had taken a turn into absolute madness. Sawyer stopped in a small clearing beside a stream. He lowered himself to the ground carefully, letting Simone slide from his back. Her legs shook as her feet found solid earth, her wedding dress torn and dirty, her hair wild around her face. She stepped back, and the massive wolf began to shimmer. Bones restructured with fluid precision, fur receding, until Sawyer stood before her, completely naked. Heat flooded Simone's cheeks. She caught only a glimpse, broad shoulders tapering to a lean waist, muscles defined from years of training, a body that was frankly unfair in its perfection, before she spun around, giving him privacy. "Sorry." Sawyer's voice was breathless. "Clothes don't survive the shift." She heard rustling behind her, fabric being pulled from somewhere, the sound of him dressing. Her face still burned. This was absurd. "You can turn around now." Simone turned to find him dressed in simple trousers and a shirt he must have stashed here beforehand. Makeshift bandages wrapped his shoulder and side, torn strips of fabric already blooming with red. The wounds were still bleeding, but less than before. "You're hurt," she said, her voice unsteady. "Shifters heal fast. These will close by morning." Sawyer's amber eyes found hers, clear and focused despite the pain he must be feeling. "Are you hurt? Did any of the glass?" "No, you shielded me from everything." "Good." Relief washed over his features, so profound it made her chest ache. He'd taken arrows for her, thrown his body between her and danger without hesitation. "We need to keep moving," Sawyer said quietly, though she could see the exhaustion pulling at him. Your stepfather will send trackers and— My mother. The words tore from Simone's throat, sharp with anguish. He really killed her? Poisoned her? Sawyer's expression gentled, pain lacing his tone. Yes. I'm sorry. The evidence is clear. Simone's legs gave out. She sank to the ground, her mother's journal clutched to her chest, and the grief she'd been holding back crashed over her now. Sobs racked her body. For her mother. For the lies. For the life she'd just fled. She felt Sawyer crouch beside her, felt his hand hover near her shoulder as if he wanted to touch. Finally, gently, his fingers settled on her back, a warm, grounding presence. Let it out, he said quietly. You're safe now. I've got you. And somehow, impossibly, she believed him. They traveled through the forest for 3 days, moving deeper into the northern territories with each mile. The first day, Simone tried to keep pace on foot. She lasted maybe 2 hours before her legs gave out. Her wedding slippers, ridiculous things, never meant for hiking, falling, apart completely. She'd sunk to the ground, frustrated tears burning her eyes. Sawyer had shifted without a word, lowering himself beside her in that same careful way he had during their escape. Climb on. No arguments. I can walk, she'd insisted. Your feet are bleeding, and we have another 10 miles to cover before nightfall. Let me carry you. So she'd climbed onto his back, and something shifted between them. Riding a wolf shouldn't have felt intimate, but with her thighs pressed against his sides, her hands buried in his fur, his warmth seeping into her, it did. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong, the way his gait adjusted to keep her comfortable, the protective way his consciousness wrapped around hers through this strange connection they shared. On the second day, she'd fallen asleep on his back while he ran. She woke to his voice whispering in her mind, Easy. You're safe. Just rest. And she had, trusting him in a way that should have terrified her. By the third night, when they finally reached a small cottage nestled in a valley between 2 mountains, Simone had grown so accustomed to the warmth of his fur, the rhythm of his gait, that climbing down felt like losing something. Safe house, Sawyer explained after shifting back and dressing. His hand lingered at her waist as he helped her dismount, steadying her. One of several I maintain throughout the territory. We can rest here while I send word to my people. Inside, the cottage was cozy, a single room with a bed, a small kitchen area, and a fireplace that radiated welcome heat. Someone had stocked it recently with food and supplies. Simone sank into the chair by the fire. She was still wearing her wedding dress, though it was now torn and stained beyond recognition, a fitting metaphor for her life. Sawyer moved around the space, starting water to heat, pulling out bread and cheese. Simone found her gaze tracking him, the way his shirt pulled across his shoulders when he reached for something. The corded muscles in his forearms as he sliced bread, the curve of his mouth as he concentrated, lips that were far too distracting for someone she'd known for 3 days. Why? She asked finally. He looked up. Why what? Why did you really come for me? Simone met his eyes, concentrating hard to keep her gaze from drifting to his lips. You said you had dreams, but that's not a reason to risk your life for a stranger. Kings don't personally rescue random women from political marriages. Sawyer set down the knife, his movements careful. He was quiet for a long moment, and Simone saw him wrestling with something. The dreams started 4 months ago, he said finally. At first, they were vague. A woman's laugh, auburn hair catching sunlight, green eyes the color of summer forests. He moved to the fireplace, staring into the flames. But they got stronger, more vivid. I started seeing you in danger, feeling your fear like it was my own. And I'd wake up with my heart racing, convinced I had to find you. That must have been unsettling, Simone said softly. It was maddening. A muscle ticked in Sawyer's jaw. I have responsibilities, duties, a kingdom to run. I couldn't abandon everything to chase a woman I'd never met, so I tried to ignore them, tried to focus on the conspiracy I was investigating, nobles planning some kind of coup. What changed? I found a name in the conspirators' correspondence, Malik Ashmore, and when I dug deeper, I found the marriage contract, found your portrait. Sawyer turned to look at her, and the raw emotion in his eyes made her breath catch. It was you, the woman from my dreams, and suddenly, everything crystallized. The dreams weren't madness, they were prophecy, warning me that you were in danger. Simone felt heat bloom across her chest. You could have sent guards or a warning. You didn't have to come yourself. I know. Sawyer's voice dropped lower. But by then, I'd been seeing your face every night. The thought of sending someone else, of not being there to protect you myself. He shook his head. I couldn't. Something in me needed to be the one to save you. Simone's heart hammered as she held his gaze, seeing the truth there. This wasn't just duty or prophecy. This was personal in a way that terrified them both. I've been having dreams too, she whispered. Sawyer went very still. You have? For weeks now? Maybe longer? Simone's hands twisted in her lap. I'd wake up remembering golden eyes, a voice saying my name, and I'd feel... She broke off, heat rising in her cheeks. Safe. Even in sleep, I felt safe. Something blazed in Sawyer's expression. Hope, wonder, hunger. He took a step toward her, then stopped himself, hands clenching at his sides like he was restraining himself from reaching for her. In shifter culture, he said carefully, shared dreams between two people who've never met means something very specific. It's a sign of... He hesitated. Of what? Mate bond. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. It's exceptionally rare. When it happens, it means two souls are meant to find each other, meant to... He stopped, shaking his head. I don't want to scare you. You've been through enough. Simone stood slowly, her legs steadier than they'd been in days. She crossed to where Sawyer stood by the fireplace, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his amber eyes, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. What if I want to understand? She asked quietly. Sawyer's breath caught, his hand lifted, hovering near her face. May I? The question sent warmth flooding through her. Yes, Simone whispered. His fingers brushed her cheek, and the contact sent electricity singing through her nerves. His touch was gentle, reverent, like she was something precious he was afraid of breaking. I don't know what the future holds, Sawyer said, but I need you to know. I've met a lot of women, good women, beautiful women, and I never... He looked down, almost shy. Not once. Not until you. Simone's eyes burned with unshed tears. No one had ever looked at her the way Sawyer was looking at her now, like she was the sky and he was mapping constellations, like she mattered for who she was, not what she could offer. Thank you, she managed, for saving me, for... Her voice broke. For seeing me. Sawyer's thumb stroked across her cheekbone, catching a tear that had escaped. I see you, Simone. I see your strength, your courage, the way you held yourself together when your world fell apart. You're remarkable. The words undid something in her chest. Simone leaned into his touch, letting herself take comfort in his presence. And when Sawyer's other arm came around her, pulling her against his chest, she didn't resist. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Simone stopped pretending to be strong and just let herself break. Sawyer held her through it all, one hand stroking her hair, his voice a low murmur of comfort against her ear. He didn't offer empty platitudes or try to fix anything. He just stayed, solid and warm and utterly present. When Simone's tears finally subsided, she pulled back just enough to look up at him. His expression was soft, open in a way that made her suspect he didn't let many people see. "I should sleep," she said, though she made no move to step away from the circle of his arms. "You should," Sawyer agreed. They stood there by the firelight, and Simone felt it, something alive beneath her ribs, pulling toward him like a tide. Was this the mate bond? Finally, reluctantly, she stepped back. Sawyer's arms fell away, though his eyes tracked her movement as she crossed to the bed. "I'll take first watch," he said. "Will you—" Simone hesitated, then pushed forward. "Will you wake me if you dream? I want to know if we share them again." Sawyer's smile broke slow and easy, like sunrise. "Yeah, I promise." Simone lay down, still wearing her ruined wedding dress, too exhausted to change. She pulled the blanket up to her chin and closed her eyes, letting sleep take her. Simone woke to the scent of wildflowers. She blinked in the early morning light, disoriented, then saw them. A small bouquet of blue mountain flowers sitting in a cup of water on the table beside the bed. They were delicate things, star-shaped petals the color of a summer sky. Sawyer sat by the fireplace, sharpening a knife with methodical strokes. He looked up when she stirred, and something soft crossed his expression. "You picked flowers?" Simone sat up slowly, her body aching from days of travel. "Found them growing by the stream." Sawyer set aside the knife. "I thought—" He paused, seeming almost embarrassed. "You've lived in a cage for so long. I wanted you to have something beautiful that was freely given." Simone's throat tightened. She reached out, touching the delicate petals. "They're lovely. There's more where those came from." Sawyer stood, moving to the small kitchen area. "When you're ready, there's a natural hot spring about a quarter mile from here. You could bathe, wash your hair. I'll stand guard." The thought of hot water, of washing away days of travel and fear, was overwhelmingly comforting. "That sounds perfect." An hour later, Simone stood in the steaming waters of the spring, her ruined wedding dress discarded on the rocks. Sawyer had found her simple clothes to change into, trousers and a loose shirt that must have been his because they smelled like him. She scrubbed her skin until it was pink, washed her hair 3 times, and let herself simply exist in the warmth. Through the trees, she could hear Sawyer moving, keeping watch, giving her privacy, but close enough to protect if needed. When she emerged, dressed in his borrowed clothes, hair dripping down her back, Sawyer went very still. His eyes traced over her, the wet fabric clinging to her shoulders, the way his shirt hung loose at her collarbone. He looked at her like he was starving. Then he swallowed hard and held out a towel, along with another small bouquet of wildflowers, these ones yellow and delicate. "A different color every day," he said, his voice rougher than before. "A reminder that the world is still full of beautiful things." Simone took the flowers, her fingers brushing his. The contact sent sparks racing up her arm, and she saw Sawyer's pupils dilate in response. His gaze dropped to her mouth, just for a heartbeat, before he caught himself and looked away. "Thank you," she managed. They walked back to the cottage, and he stayed close enough that his arm brushed hers with every other step, close enough that when the path narrowed, his hand found the small of her back, guiding her over the uneven ground. Back at the cottage, Sawyer prepared a simple breakfast while Simone sat by the fire, her mother's journal open in her lap. She'd been afraid to read it, afraid of what she might find. But now, with morning light streaming through the windows and the scent of cooking filling the air, she felt ready. Her mother's handwriting was elegant and familiar, each word a ghost of memory. Simone traced the letters with her fingertips, tears blurring her vision as she read about her parents' courtship, their love, the joy of discovering she was pregnant. Then she found an entry that made her breath stop. I dreamed again last night. The same vision I've been having for weeks now. A golden wolf standing guard over a young woman, our daughter, grown beautiful and strong. In the dream, the wolf transforms into a man with amber eyes, and he looks at her like she's the answer to every question he's ever had. I don't understand these dreams. Mother used to speak of our family's gift, visions that run in the bloodline, connections to the shifter world that go back generations. I thought they were just stories, but these dreams feel real. I see darkness coming for our daughter, betrayal from someone she trusts, but I also see the wolf, the protector. He'll come when she needs him most. If I don't live to see it, I hope she finds this. I hope she knows that she's never alone, that her legacy is stronger than she realizes, and that when the golden wolf appears, she should trust him. He's her destiny. Simone's hands shook, the journal trembling in her grip. Her mother had seen this, had seen Sawyer, had known he would come. Simone? Sawyer's voice cut through her shock. What is it? She couldn't speak, just turned the journal toward him, letting him read the passage that had stolen her breath. She watched his face as he read, saw understanding dawn, saw wonder settle across his features. She knew. Your mother knew. The dreams run in families, Simone said, her voice shaking. She wrote about it. Our bloodline. We're connected to the shifter world somehow. That's why I could hear you when you were in wolf form. Why I can sense your emotions. Sawyer set the journal down carefully, his eyes finding hers. Wolf bonded, he said softly. In the oldest stories, there were humans who could connect with shifters on a level beyond normal understanding. They were incredibly rare, sacred. Most modern shifters don't even believe they exist anymore. But I'm one of them. Simone's mind raced. I think that's why Malik wanted me, not just for the inheritance. What do you mean? Simone stood, pacing now as pieces clicked into place. Malik studied ancient magic. I remember my stepfather mentioning it, how Malik was obsessed with old rituals, with gaining power. If he knew about my bloodline, he'd want to use it. Sawyer's expression darkened. Blood magic. If he could access your connection to the shifter world, he could potentially steal abilities, become something more than human. Horror washed over Simone. That's why he agreed to the marriage, why my stepfather pushed so hard for it, and why they planned to kill you. Sawyer's voice went hard. After they'd used you for whatever ritual they had planned. Simone's legs weakened, and she sank back into the chair. They were going to, but they didn't. Sawyer was at her side instantly, kneeling before her, his hands framing her face with devastating gentleness. They didn't get the chance because you're here with me. Safe. Am I, though? Simone searched his eyes. Did you see Malik's body when you found him? Sawyer's face went cold, and Simone knew she'd hit on something. He stood abruptly, moving to the window, his whole body tense. No. My scouts reported signs of violence, blood, but no body. The air between them changed. You assumed animals had taken it, Simone said slowly, her heart starting to race. Yes, Sawyer cursed under his breath. I'm a fool. This was a trap. Not for you. Understanding crystallized. For us. Together. If my bloodline makes me valuable, and I'm bonded to you, then we're both leverage. Sawyer's hands clenched. If they can capture us both, force a blood ritual while the mate bond is active. We need to leave, Simone said. Get ahead of them. But Sawyer shook his head slowly. They'll be tracking us already. And if I'm right about what they want, they won't stop. We could run for years, and they'd keep coming. Then what do we do? Sawyer turned to look at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her pulse spike. We stop running. We confront them on our terms, with my pack as backup. End this before they can hurt anyone else. Your pack. Simone pulled her hands back. Sawyer, you're asking them to go to war. For me. Someone they don't even know. They'll fight because I ask them to. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. She stood, needing distance. You've already risked everything to get me out. What if someone dies because of me? Sawyer crossed to her, catching her hands before she could retreat further. What if someone dies because we didn't act? Malik won't stop with you. Men like him never do. His grip tightened. My pack is strong, and they deserve the choice to fight for what's right. His voice softened. But I need to know you're with me, that you trust me to keep you safe, to end this. Simone looked into those amber eyes, the same ones she'd been dreaming about for months, the same ones her mother had seen in prophetic visions years ago. I trust you, she said firmly. They spent the next few days preparing. Sawyer sent messages to his pack through a network of scouts, calling his most trusted warriors to a rendezvous point. He taught Simone basic self-defense, showed her how to use a knife, how to move quietly through the forest. Again, he said on the second afternoon, circling her in the clearing behind the cottage. Someone grabs you from behind. What do you do? Simone barely had time to think before his arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. Her breath caught, not from fear, but from the sudden heat of him, the solid wall of muscle at her back. Don't freeze, he murmured against her ear. Drop your weight. Make yourself harder to hold. She tried to focus, tried to remember the steps he'd shown her, but his other hand came to rest on her hip, adjusting her stance, and every thought scattered. Like this. He guided her through the movement, his touch firm and deliberate. When she finally broke free and spun to face him, they were both breathing harder than the exercise warranted. Sawyer's eyes were bright amber, fixed on her flushed face. He was so close she could see the gold flecks in his eyes, feel the heat radiating off his skin. His hand came up slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair back from her face. His thumb traced along her jaw. Simone. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then he leaned in, just a fraction, and she tilted her face up without thinking. Their breath mingled. Another inch, and a bird shrieked overhead, sharp and sudden. They jerked apart. Sawyer stepped back, running a hand through his hair. We should take a break. Yeah. Her voice came out breathless. Good idea. The next morning, Simone woke to find yet another bouquet of wildflowers, this time purple ones with delicate white centers. But there was something else too. A small box made of dark wood, intricately carved. She opened it with trembling fingers and found her mother's wedding ring inside, a simple band of gold with a small emerald. How did you... I had one of my scouts retrieve it from the manor. Sawyer appeared in the doorway, his expression gentle. I thought you might want it, a piece of her to carry with you. Simone couldn't speak past the emotion clogging her throat. She slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, and felt her mother's presence like a warm embrace. Thank you, she managed finally. I know I've brought nothing but trouble to your door. I wish I could have come to you without all of this hanging over us. Sawyer crossed to her, and Simone's breath caught at the raw emotion in his eyes. You're not trouble, Simone. He shook his head slowly. Everything that's happened, it brought you here. To me. And every moment I spend with you, I understand more clearly why I've been dreaming of you. And why's that? Because you're extraordinary. Sawyer's hand lifted to cup her cheek. You think you're fragile, but Simone, you've learned more in 2 days than most of my warriors pick up in weeks. You don't see how strong you are, but I do. And my wolf has been clawing at me since I was old enough to shift. Restless, always searching for something I couldn't name. But the second I saw you, he settled, like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. Simone's heart hammered against her ribs. Sawyer. I know this is fast, he continued, his thumb stroking across her cheekbone. I know you've been through hell and you need time. But I also know, his voice roughened with emotion, I know that what I feel for you isn't just the mate bond. It's deeper than that. Simone leaned into his touch, her eyes searching his. What do you feel? Like every choice I've made, every path I've walked was leading me to that moment in your chamber, and I'd burn the whole world down before I let anyone hurt you again. Heat flooded through Simone, followed by something fiercer, desire, but also recognition. Soul-deep knowledge that this man, this moment, was exactly where she was meant to be. I feel it too, she confessed. The pull, like we're two halves of something that was always meant to be whole. But I need to know something. She held his gaze. In your dreams, did you ever see us together? Happy? Yes. I saw us standing side by side, saw you laughing, saw morning light in your hair and flowers in your hands. Show me, Simone whispered, her hand covering his where it rested against her cheek. I don't know what this is supposed to feel like, being wanted, being... She stopped, color flooding her face. Sawyer studied her, the way she couldn't quite meet his eyes, the nervous flutter of her pulse at her throat. Understanding dawned slowly, and with it, something tender and fierce. You've never been kissed? Her blush deepened. Malik didn't... We weren't... She shook her head, embarrassed. It doesn't matter. It matters. Sawyer's voice was rough as he tilted her face up gently, making her look at him. It matters because I want your first kiss to be perfect. I want you to feel cherished, not used, wanted, not claimed. Do you trust me? Yes, she breathed. He leaned in slowly. Then let me show you. Sawyer's mouth found hers, and the world narrowed to just this, his lips moving against hers with devastating tenderness, his hand sliding into her hair, his other arm pulling her closer. The kiss was slow, exploratory, like he was learning the taste of her, memorizing every sigh and shiver. Simone's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him impossibly closer. She had nothing to compare this to, but when Sawyer's tongue traced the seam of her lips, she opened for him without hesitation. The kiss deepened, turned hungry, and Simone felt the mate bond flare between them, a living thing, wrapping around her heart and pulling tight. She could feel Sawyer's desire, his restraint, his fierce need to protect her even from himself, could sense how hard he was fighting to keep control, to let her set the pace. Don't hold back, Simone gasped against his mouth. I'm not fragile, remember? Sawyer pulled back just enough to meet her eyes, and what she saw there, raw hunger tempered by loving tenderness, made her knees weak. You're not fragile, he agreed, his voice rough. You're every beautiful, dangerous thing I've ever wanted, but I don't want to rush this, to give you any reason to regret. Simone kissed him again, harder this time, swallowing his words. She poured everything into it, her fear and her courage, her grief and her hope, her absolute certainty that this was right. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Sawyer rested his forehead against hers. I'll wait as long as you need, he said quietly. For everything. But Simone... His hand framed her face. You need to know that when I say I want you, it's not just your body. It's your mind, your heart, your strength. All of you. Simone's eyes burned. No one's ever wanted me like that. Then they were fools. Sawyer pressed a kiss to her forehead, achingly gentle. And I'm grateful for their blindness, because it means I get to be the one who shows you how you deserve to be loved. Loved. Simone felt the words settle into her bones like truth. I'm falling for you, she confessed. I know it's too soon. I know it's probably the bond, but it's not just the bond. Sawyer's eyes flared. The bond makes the connection stronger, but what we feel, that's real. That's choice. And I'm choosing you, Simone. Every moment. Every day. Simone pulled him down for another kiss, and this time, she let herself believe it. They stayed like that for a long time, trading kisses and quiet words, learning the language of each other. The attack came the following night. Simone woke to Sawyer's hand over her mouth, his eyes blazing in the darkness. Quiet, he breathed. They're here. Her heart launched into her throat. She could hear it now. Movement outside the cottage. Multiple footsteps, careful and coordinated, surrounding them. Sawyer helped her dress quickly, his movements efficient and controlled. He strapped a knife to her thigh, another to her forearm, and pressed a third into her hand. My pack is 2 hours out, he whispered. We just need to survive until they arrive. How many? Simone's voice was steady despite the fear racing through her veins. At least a dozen. Maybe more. Sawyer's expression was grim. Mercenaries, by the smell of them. Malik's not taking chances. The first arrow punched through the window, trailing fire. It hit. The far wall and flames erupted, hungry and immediate. More followed, a volley of burning projectiles designed to drive them out. They're trying to smoke us out, Sawyer snarled. He grabbed Simone's hand. Stay behind me. When I shift, run for the trees. Don't stop. Don't look back. Understand? I'm not leaving you. You won't be. His eyes met hers, fierce and certain. I'll be right behind you, but I need you safe first. The door exploded inward. Armed men poured through, 6, 7, 8 of them, weapons drawn. Sawyer shoved Simone behind him and began to shift, his body rippling with transformation. But before he could complete it, something whistled through the air, a dart that buried itself in his shoulder. Sawyer stumbled, his shift faltering, and Simone saw his face go slack with shock. Silver root poison? A familiar voice said. Nasty stuff. It'll keep you from transforming for a good few hours. Malik stepped through the smoke, very much alive. He was handsome, in a cold, calculated way, dark hair, pale gray eyes that held no warmth. Behind him, more mercenaries filed in, and Simone's heart sank as she realized they were completely outnumbered. Hello, my darling bride, Malik said, his smile sharp. You're supposed to be dead, Sawyer growled, struggling against the poison's effects. A useful fiction. Malik gestured, and 2 mercenaries moved forward to restrain Sawyer. Despite the poison, he fought like a cornered wolf, all teeth and fury. It took 4 men to hold him, and even then, he didn't stop struggling. Simone's hand tightened on her knife. She assessed the room quickly. 8 men, including Malik. The cottage was burning. Her options were limited. Don't even think about it, Malik said, noticing her grip on the weapon. You kill one of us. They kill him. Simple math. Simone's gaze flew to Sawyer, saw the barely controlled rage in his eyes, and beneath it, fear. Not for himself, but for her. What do you want? She demanded. What I've always wanted. Malik moved closer, studying her like she was a curiosity in a museum. Your bloodline, your power, the ancient connection your family has to the shifter world. He gestured to Sawyer. And now, conveniently, you've bonded yourself to the strongest shifter in the territory. Do you have any idea how valuable that makes you? I'm not going to help you. Simone's voice was steady, even as her heart hammered. You don't have a choice. Malik's smile widened. The blood ritual doesn't require your consent, just your presence, and his. If you hurt her—" Sawyer's voice was lethal. "Oh, I'm not going to hurt her." Malik's gaze slid between them. "I'm going to use her, use the bond between you, and when I'm done, I'll have the power of a shifter king and the magic of a wolf-bonded witch. I'll be unstoppable." "The ritual will kill her," Sawyer said, his voice cracking. "You know that." "Eventually." Malik shrugged. "But she'll last long enough for my purposes." Rage swept through Simone so pure it burned. This man, this entitled, power-hungry fool, had planned her death, and now thought he could use her like a tool. She was done being used. In one smooth motion, Simone threw her knife. It wasn't a perfect throw, but it was good enough. The blade buried itself in the shoulder of the man holding Sawyer's right arm. The mercenary screamed, his grip loosening. Sawyer moved instantly, using the distraction. Even poisoned, even outnumbered, he fought with devastating efficiency. He slammed his elbow into one man's face, heard bone crack, twisted to grab another's sword, using it to cut down two more in brutal, economical strikes. Simone didn't watch. She was already moving, ducking under Malik's reaching hands, sprinting for the door. Her only thought was to get outside, to give Sawyer room to fight without worrying about her. She burst into the night air, smoke and flames at her back. The forest loomed ahead, dark and welcoming. She ran for it, her lungs burning, her mother's ring glinting on her finger. Behind her, she heard Malik shouting orders, heard the thunder of pursuit. But she also heard something else, a howl, long and haunting, that made every hair on her body stand on end. Sawyer had completed the shift. Somehow, despite the poison, he'd pushed through. Simone risked a glance back and saw him, a massive golden wolf, larger than any horse, tearing through mercenaries like they were made of paper. His jaws closed around one man's arm, his claws ripped through another's chest. He was magnificent and terrible and seemingly unstoppable. But there were too many. More mercenaries poured from the woods now, surrounding him. Simone saw silver nets, the kind designed to hold shifters, being thrown over Sawyer's massive form. Saw him struggle, heard his snarl of fury and frustration, and she saw Malik approaching with something that glowed with unnatural light, a binding collar, enchanted to suppress shifter abilities, completely. No. The word blazed through Simone's mind with perfect clarity. She'd run from danger her whole life, run from her stepfather, from uncomfortable truths, from her own power. But she was done running. Her mother had been wolf-bonded, had carried magic in her blood, and Simone was her daughter. She closed her eyes, thought of Sawyer out there, fighting. The idea of losing him, of never seeing his smile again, of never feeling his arms around her, was unbearable. Heat exploded in her chest, not painful, but vast and wild and ancient. Something that had been sleeping her whole life suddenly ripped awake. Power flooded through her veins like liquid fire, and Simone gasped as it built and built and built until she thought she might shatter from it. Her eyes snapped open, and she knew without looking that they were glowing, the same golden amber as Sawyer's, reflecting the magic they shared. She raised her hands, not knowing what she intended to do, only knowing she had to act. Light erupted from her palms, pure, golden, blinding. It swept outward in a wave that slammed into the mercenaries surrounding Sawyer, lifting them off their feet and hurling them backward. The silver nets disintegrated where the light touched them, turning to ash. Sawyer surged free, shaking off the remnants of the nets. His massive head swung towards Simone, and she felt his shock and wonder through their bond. Together she thought at him, and felt his fierce agreement in response. They moved as one. Sawyer attacked with renewed fury, his claws and teeth making quick work of the remaining mercenaries. Simone focused her newfound power, sending targeted bursts of energy at anyone who tried to flank him. Malik stood at the edge of the clearing, his expression twisted with fury and disbelief. "Impossible," he breathed. "You shouldn't be able to access that power. Not without training, not without—" "Love." Simone's voice rang out clear and strong. "Is that what you were going to say?" "Because that's what you don't understand, Malik. You tried to take power through ritual and blood magic, but the real power—" She gestured to Sawyer, to the bond humming between them. "Comes from choice, from giving yourself completely to someone who gives themselves back." "Sentimental nonsense," Malik snarled, but his hands were shaking, and Simone saw fear in his eyes for the first time. "It's truth." Sawyer had shifted back to human form, standing beside her now. Blood streaked his skin from a dozen wounds, but he was smiling, fierce and proud. "And you're about to learn exactly how powerful that truth is." They attacked together, Simone's magic and Sawyer's strength perfectly synchronized, moving as two parts of one whole. Malik tried to fight back, pulling dark artifacts from his coat, muttering words in languages that made the air curdle. But it wasn't enough. Sawyer caught Malik's wrist, twisting until the enchanted dagger he'd drawn clattered to the ground. Simone's power wrapped around Malik like golden chains, holding him immobile. "It's over," Sawyer said quietly. Malik's face contorted with rage. "You think this changes anything? There are dozens like me, hundreds, all hungry for power, all willing to do whatever it takes. Then we'll stop them too." Simone's voice was steel. "Every last one who thinks they can use people as tools, who think magic and strength give them the right to take what they want." "Starting with you," Sawyer added. His hand shifted, claws extending from his fingertips. "For the conspiracy against my throne, for everything you've done." Understanding bled in Malik's eyes, and with it, real terror. "Wait, we can negotiate. I have resources, information about the other conspirators." "I'm sure you do." Sawyer's expression was cold. "And you'll provide all of it, right before my executioner takes your head." Malik opened his mouth to plead, to bargain, but Sawyer's fist connected with his jaw, and the Lord crumpled, unconscious. Silence fell over the clearing, broken only by the crackle of the burning cottage and the labored breathing of the few surviving mercenaries who'd chosen surrender over death. Simone's power flickered and died, exhaustion crashing over her. She swayed, and Sawyer was there instantly, catching her before she could fall. "I've got you," he murmured, lowering them both to the ground. "You were incredible, terrifying yet beautiful, and absolutely incredible." Simone laughed weakly. "I have no idea what I just did." "You saved us." Sawyer pressed his forehead to hers. "Your magic, your strength, you saved both of our lives." "We saved each other," Simone corrected. "That's how this works, isn't it? The bond. We're stronger together." "Yes." Sawyer's hand cupped her face, his thumb stroking her cheekbone. "We are." They stayed like that, holding each other in the wreckage until the sound of approaching wolves announced the arrival of Sawyer's pack. 3 months later, Simone stood on the balcony of the northern palace, watching snow fall over the mountains in soft, silent curtains. Winter had arrived early this year, painting the world in shades of white and silver. Behind her, in their shared chambers, she could hear Sawyer discussing strategy with his advisors. Her stepfather's trial had concluded last week, guilty on all counts. Execution scheduled for the new moon. The other conspirators were being systematically rooted out and dealt with. Justice, swift and certain. But Simone found she didn't think about revenge much anymore. She was too busy learning to use her magic, studying the ancient texts about wolf-bonded witches that Sawyer's scholars had unearthed. Too busy being happy. "There you are." Sawyer's arms came around her from behind, pulling her back against his chest. "I've been looking for you. Just watching the snow." Simone leaned into his warmth. It's beautiful. Not as beautiful as you. Sawyer pressed a kiss to her temple. I have something for you. He turned her around, and Simone's breath caught. In his hands was a circlet, delicate silver worked into the shape of wildflowers, with small emeralds nestled among the petals. Sawyer. It's a mating crown, he explained quietly. In shifter tradition, when two people complete their bond, the male presents his mate with a crown to symbolize that she's his equal, his partner in all things. Simone's eyes burned. We haven't completed the bond yet. I know. Sawyer's smile was gentle. But I wanted you to have this now, as a reminder that when you're ready, whether that's tomorrow or a year from now, I'll be here, waiting, choosing you every single day. Simone took the crown with trembling fingers, studying the delicate craftsmanship. Each flower was perfect, rendered in silver with such detail she could see individual petals. Do you remember, she said softly, when you used to leave me wildflowers every morning? In those first days when we were running? I remember everything about those days. Sawyer's hand found hers. You said they were to remind me the world was still beautiful, that I deserved beautiful things freely given. Simone met his eyes. You've given me so much more than flowers, Sawyer. You've given me freedom, choice, a future I want to live. You gave yourself those things, Sawyer corrected. I just helped you see what was always there. We helped each other. Simone set the crown aside carefully and reached up to frame his face with her hands. And I'm ready now. Sawyer's breath caught. Ready for everything. Simone pulled him down for a kiss, pouring all her love and certainty into it. To complete the bond, to be your mate and your queen, to build this future together. When she pulled back, Sawyer's eyes were blazing with emotion so intense it stole her breath. Are you sure? He asked, his voice rough. Because once we do this, once we complete the bond fully, there's no going back. You'll be bound to me, body and soul, for the rest of our lives. I'm already bound to you, Simone said simply. I have been since the moment you appeared in my chamber and offered me a choice. The bond ceremony is just making official what's already true. Sawyer kissed her then, deep and hungry and full of promise. And when he swept her into his arms, carrying her back into their chambers, Simone felt nothing but joy. That night, under the light of a full moon, they completed the mate bond. It was nothing like Simone had imagined. The physical intimacy was intense. Sawyer worshipped her body with devastating thoroughness, learning every sound that made her gasp, every touch that made her shiver. But it was the emotional connection that left her breathless. With the bond fully formed, she could feel everything. His love, fierce and unwavering. His devotion, absolute and eternal. His joy at finally claiming his mate. And he could feel her too. Her trust, her desire, her complete surrender to what they were building together. When it was over, when they lay tangled together in the aftermath, Simone traced the new mark on Sawyer's shoulder, a golden wolf rendered in magic that would never fade, the physical manifestation of their bond. Sawyer had a matching mark on her shoulder, a crown of wildflowers, delicate and perfect. I dreamed of this moment, Sawyer murmured, his fingers stroking through her hair. Months ago, before I knew your name, I saw you in my bed, wearing my mark, looking at me exactly the way you're looking at me now. How am I looking at you? Simone asked, though she thought she knew. Like I'm your whole world. Sawyer's voice roughened with emotion. Like you choose me, not because of prophecy or destiny, but because you want to. I do choose you. Simone pressed a kiss to his chest, right over his heart. Every day, every moment, for the rest of my life. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and for the first time, since the dreams had started, Sawyer didn't see visions of danger or prophecy. He just saw Simone, awake and laughing, and completed his. And Simone dreamed of a future that looked nothing like the loveless marriage she'd been headed toward. She dreamed of children with amber eyes and wildflower crowns, of a kingdom where wolf-bonded magic was celebrated, not exploited, of growing old beside a man who saw her as the sky saw the stars, essential, brilliant, irreplaceable. And when she woke the next morning to find Sawyer watching her, a fresh bouquet of winter roses on the table beside their bed, she knew the dream had become reality. A month later, Simone stood in the great hall of the Northern Palace, the mating crown on her head catching the light from hundreds of candles. Around her, representatives from every shifter pack and allied territory had gathered to witness the formal coronation, her elevation from mate to queen. But what made her smile wasn't the ceremony or the finery or the power she now wielded. It was Sawyer, standing beside her in formal regalia, his hand finding hers as they prepared to address the assembled crowd. It was the way he looked at her, like she was still the answer to every question. It was the small life growing in her belly, the secret they'd share publicly in a few more weeks when the pregnancy became undeniable. It was knowing that from the ashes of betrayal and murder and forced marriage, she'd built something beautiful, something true. "Ready?" Sawyer whispered. Simone squeezed his hand. "Always." Together they stepped forward to greet their future. And somewhere, in a place beyond dreams and prophecy, Simone felt her mother's presence, proud and loving and at peace. The golden wolf had come, just as she'd foreseen, and her daughter had not just survived. She'd thrived. Where are you listening from? I love hearing your thoughts, and if you'd like to support me, please like and subscribe. It's free, and it helps more people find this story.